Thank you very much, Marge, thank you very much, Marge, for having me this morning. And I have to say that I have thoroughly enjoyed and benefited from the conversation this morning. I found all of the different viewpoints in this group so interesting because I think it's a microcosm, although perhaps of more engaged people and people more with one point of view. But even within that, the diversity in viewpoints was really very interesting. But there was some common themes. And I have to say, I think it was Ian who said that it didn't matter who you voted for, what your politicians did. So I have to thank you, Ian, for taking the pressure off of me, because clearly what we do doesn't matter. But all joking aside, I do want to say that it is a great honor for me to be representing the riding of Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill in our federal government. I agree with much of what I've heard, and I like to start by saying I'm not a politician. I'm one of you. I'm a community member. I'm a person who grew up in a home where helping others and involvement in community was the most important thing. I got involved in running for the Liberal Party because I felt that there were so many large issues that were facing us. And this is not, everyone always says this is the most important election. This is the most dangerous time. Things like this have happened before. But I do feel that that there were issues that were very disturbing. And one of those was the climate crisis, and is the climate crisis. I think that this is an issue that we need all at every level to act and to educate and inform. Numerous people spoke of the fact that our individual actions matter, and I couldn't agree more. I don't think it's all up to government. I think it's up to every one of us through those actions we take every day, the choices we make. Not only our personal choices in terms of where we get our energy, whether we walk or ride a bike or take one trip instead of three, whether we eat less meat or we choose to reduce our food waste or have our gardens. I was so encouraged by the number of people who said that they had their gardens or they were putting away their gardening equipment. I think all of these individual things do make a difference, and it's up to all of us to make those choices and to help our government. I do think the other way we do that is by reaching out to our elected officials, to letting our government know and our elected officials know what matters to us, whether it's black styrofoam in Richmond Hill, or if it's the targets we've set, or the way we're approaching the oil and gas industry. So I really think that it's on every level, from the personal to the municipal to the federal and international, the global world working together on these issues. So let me go into a few specifics on COP26 and what I think Canada has and can do. One thing I will say again is that I was a little disturbed not disturbed, but disheartened by the amount of pessimism around this table and in the room. There were a lot of people who said they had no faith in what COP26 could produce or what the government could do, that their faith was in entrepreneurs and individuals. And I would say my faith is also in individuals and entrepreneurs, but also in governments and international communities, because I think it's going to take all of us working together to make progress. And we can't sit back and say it's all on them, or look at something and say it's not going to do anything. We're part of that change. And I think our perspective on it and the way we engage in it makes a big difference. So for me, I look at COP26 and I say, when you look back, for example, in Canada, we have one of the best systems right now, price on pollution, of anywhere in the world. That is progress. That is real progress. We talked about motivation. Many people mentioned we have to be motivated to make these choices. Putting a price on pollution is a very important and fundamental way using our market system to encourage people to make different choices. Choices that incorporate the environmental costs of the items they're purchasing. The government had to fight provincial governments. They had to go to court and insist that this was a way for us to move forward. And it is working. It is making some progress. Now, one of the things that has come up at COP26, which I think also came up at the G20, in addition to the minimum corporate tax, was that there should be some kind of a minimum price on pollution that every economy places to try and create a fairer playing field amongst countries. And I think this is a good concept. I do believe that the price on pollution at a macro level is something that is going to help change our behavior. And is that motivation that we need in order to move forward. From a totally different perspective, many people also compare the pandemic to the environment crisis. And I would say that the pandemic and the focus we put on it and the way everyone was engaged and participated is a model for how we should be handling and how we can move forward on the global climate crisis. I am a big believer in education, as many people have spoken about. We need to put a focus on this. We need people to be thinking about it, not just when we have disasters like the town of Lytton burning down, but every day. We have to be aware, and we have to have our leaders come out and talk about this existential crisis, because we all have to take action now in whatever way we can. And for each one of us, that will be something different. But it's not for one of us to judge the other. Judgment isn't going to help here. What we have to do is all pull together and see that we all have a part to play, that our businesses, our youth, and I agree, it's going to be our young people. They're coming up with some of the most brilliant ideas on carbon capture. When you look at regenerative agriculture and other things that can be done, well, we have to look at all of the options and engage youth, engage businesses, and support businesses to make that transition. And well, a couple of people commented on our Prime Minister's action to cap emissions from the oil and gas industry. I just want to clarify that, because he is not shutting down that industry. He is taking action now, not saying it's going to be 2030 or 2050. People often criticize those long-term goals and say, you can set goals for out in 2030 or 2050, but what about now? And then when we take action now, like putting a price on pollution or saying to the oil and gas industry, we're going to cap your emissions. They've doubled since 1990, mostly because of tar sands. And if our leader says, no more growth in emissions, we all have to figure out how the oil and gas industry will continue without increasing emissions. That is doable. It is something where if we have a strong statement of action, if we have a strong plan, we can move forward. So again, going back to the group and everything you said, it's so interesting because on the one hand, you hear people saying, we don't want targets for 2030 or 2050, but then we don't want dramatic action now either. We can't have it both ways. If we're going to make change here, we're going to have to take action, and not everyone is going to agree. That is one thing that I've seen in spades since being out over the last few years, speaking to people at doors about the issues that matter. We only have to look at the pandemic right now to see the diversity of views about how we should be handling this. And really sadly, the division and acrimony the lack of compassion, Sarah, that we've seen in our communities around people judging other people and people being angry and just really not accepting sometimes that we have to move forward with policies, with the best decision we can make based on science, based on the largest consensus in science, and take action. And that is the job of government. And I'm learning every day as a new person doing this work and trying to be a servant of the people in government, that you sometimes have to just say, this is the way that we believe is the best way forward. And hopefully, after a lot of examination, a lot of experts and science and conversation. And this is why I think, Marge, that your group here, Connecting the Community, is so important. As part of the democratic process, not specifically in terms of politics perhaps, but to everyone who is part of this group and who doesn't feel that politics or politicians matter, I would say it's engagement that matters. It's participation that matters. And just going back to why I'm doing this and what I'm about, I very much want to be the kind of representative I know it's not everyone's Richmond Hill, but in the northern part of Richmond Hill, and I know Magid feels the same way in Oak Ridges and Aurora, that really connects to people. We all know that these issues are personal. These are issues that affect every one of us, and this is all about people, relationships, and working together as a community to move forward. And so it's really my intention, my honor to be here this morning, to listen to you, to hear what you have to say, and to say to you that I am here, for you to talk to. I'm here for you to reach out to and to give me your input. I am only one, as you know, of 338 members of Parliament, but in the caucus, we do have a voice. And it's important for our democracy to work, for elected representatives to be willing to voice their opinions, and more importantly, the opinions of the people they represent in caucus and in Parliament. And I believe it's something we have to return to even more. So I really am very concerned about this. I'd also actually prepared notes, but I'm not going to go there as the meeting has gone on and all the conversation has been about COP26, but I'd also prepared some notes and some thoughts on what's been happening recently with the court decision, or the government's decision to appeal the Human Rights Tribunal decision in the case that Cindy Blackstock had brought on behalf of Indigenous children. It's another very complex and interesting issue that I feel passionately about. And I would just say one small thing on that, because I think it's another area where the government is doing what they feel is the best thing for moving forward. And I think that, basically it's not popular, the decision the government has taken. And when I look at it from the outside, I disagree. I say, let's give the money to those children. What are we doing? But when you actually look at what has happened, and that the fact that the government is willing to take a very unpopular step with most Canadians in saying, no, that's not the right thing to do. We want to sit down and negotiate with Cindy Blackstone, with the Association of First Nations, with these class action lawsuits, and to make sure that we have a comprehensive solution going forward to fix the problem and to compensate these children, these victims, quite frankly, over the last 50 years properly and commensurately. So it's not a question of the government saying, we want to fight these children. It's a question of the government saying, this reconciliation is a process we have to take step and step with First Nations, with Indigenous people. And the settling or agreeing to that lawsuit was not the best way forward in the considered opinions of most of the experts. I am not an expert. I would have loved to have seen this settled. But just to say, sometimes the government and politicians take positions like putting a cap on the emissions, like saying we have to negotiate the right settlement, that don't seem like the right thing to do to many people. And people don't want to understand or look into the nuances often behind these things. So I guess my point is that we're never going to please everybody. The government's never going to please anybody. The government is not the entire solution, but your voices in urging the government to do things is incredibly important. Community engagement is incredibly important. And I believe that by working together as allies, as has been mentioned, as community and as a country and a globe, that there is possibility to move forward in a lot of these areas, including climate, in addressing the climate crisis. And so I'd encourage all of you who have spoken about your individual choices to keep making those choices. Those who are educators and are out there talking to people, please continue to let people know that this is an important issue and that we have to be thinking about it daily, not just when there's a crisis occurring. And please reach out to me. Let me know what you're thinking. To the extent I am possibly able, I will meet with you, I will talk to you, and I really appreciate being included in this meeting. I will come to them if I can, and if not, I will have someone join you. But I so appreciate the work your group is doing, Marge, and the Council Ability Group. And again, municipal politics matter greatly. Please, please, please. That election is so important. I look forward to working with you all and am open to questions. And I know there's not a lot of time remaining, Marge, but once again, thank you for having me here and the ability to talk to you.